So today we've been given three functions. F of x is 3x squared plus 5. G of x is 4x minus 3. And h of x is 1 over 3x squared plus 5. So we've been given these these three functions, and we've been asked to find several things. And the first thing we've been asked to find is f of g of x. Okay? So I'm going to start off by telling you that this is the same as f of g of x. Okay? So we take f, and everywhere we have x, we're going to put the function g. Well, what is the function g? It's the square root of 4x minus 3. So in the function f, we're going to substitute this everywhere we have x, which gives me 3x squared plus 5. Well, if we square this, we get 4x minus 3 plus 5. And if we multiply, we get 12x minus 9 plus 5. And 12x minus 9 plus 5 is 12x minus 4. Okay, so that's f of g of x. And that's how we do that. It's actually very simple. It's a substitution. And basically what you do is everywhere you have x in the function f, everywhere you have x, you put whatever's in g of x. Okay. Here we have f times h of x. So what they've asked us to do is to find f times h. Okay, so f is 3x squared plus 5. And h is 1 over 3x squared plus 5. And of course, because these are inverse functions of each other, what we end up with is just 1. Okay, we get 3x squared plus 5 on top, 3x squared plus 5 on bottom. Those will cancel out, and we're left with 1. The next one is f of h of x. So what we do here is we say this is the same as f of h of x. Okay, so we're just going to bring this up here, give me a little more room, which gives me, this is the same as f of 1 over 3x squared plus 5. So we take the function f, and I'll remind you the function f is here, 3x squared plus 5. And everywhere we have x, we're going to put this. So we have 3, and that's going to be our x, 1 over 3x squared plus 5, squared plus 5. And the problem that we're going to run into, obviously, here is that this is going to be a mess. A very, very, very big mess. Okay? So we have to square this. So if we square that, what we end up with is we end up with 3 times 1 over, and 3x squared plus 5 squared is going to give us 9x to the 4th plus 30x squared, and then plus 25, and then that's plus 5. Okay? And then we're going to multiply this by 3. Well, there's 1 on top, so 3 times 1 is 3. So we end up with 3 over 9x to the 4th plus 30x squared plus 25 plus 5. Okay? Well, the only way to add these two and simplify this expression is to have a common denominator. So the way we do that is we're going to multiply. The common denominator is obviously 9x to the 4th plus 30x squared plus 25. So we're going to take that expression, okay, and we're going to multiply this 5 by 9x to the 4th plus 30x squared plus 25 on top and bottom. So what do we end up with? Well, what we end up with is over here we get the same thing, and over here we basically get 9x to the 4th plus 30x squared plus 25 times 5. Okay? So what we end up with before we get to our final answer here is we end up with 3 plus all of that over the common denominator. So 9 times 5 will be 45x to the 4th. And then 5 times 30 will be 150x squared. And then 5 times 25 will be 125 over 9x to the 4th plus 30x squared plus 25. And then, of course, up here we have like terms here and here we can combine. And so when we do this last step, we end up with 45x to the 4th plus 150x squared plus 128 over 9x to the 4th plus 30x squared plus 25. And then the only other question we have to ask here when we've gotten down to this last step is there anything in here that we can take out, a greatest common factor really? And if I look at the top, the numerator, all of these numbers are divisible by 3. They are not divisible by 5. They're only divisible by 3. And I look in the bottom, I say, well, that's divisible by 3. That's divisible by 3. That is not divisible by 3. So there's no way to simplify this. So that would be our answer. 45x to the 4th plus 150x squared plus 128 over 9x to the 4th plus 30x squared plus 25. So the next problem down, if you look at our problems here, and obviously that took up more room than any of the other ones will, we've been asked to find f of h of 5. Well, f of h of 5 is this exact same question, only instead of finding this composition, once we find this composition, everywhere we have x, they want us to plug in 5. So to find f of h of 5 is actually very simple. What we do is we take this here and we plug in, everywhere we have x, we plug in 5. So I say 45 times 5 to the 4th, and that's a huge number, it's 28,125, plus 150 times 5 squared, and that totals to 31,875, then plus another 128. So I end up with 32,003. 32,003. So again, if I take and plug in a 5 here, plug in a 5 here, and then add 128, and I get 32,003. Then on the bottom, I say 9 times 5 to the 4th plus 30 times 5 squared plus 25, and I get 6,400. 6,400. Okay? And then the question is, will that simplify? Now, the easiest way to do this is if you have any type of calculator really that can handle fractions, is to type this in and see if it will simplify. And what you will find is, I think very few, if any, calculators will simplify a fraction this large. And so then the question is, if you had to simplify this by hand, what would you do? Well, because this ends in 3, it's not always a likely bet, but it's a good bet that it's divisible by 3. In this case, it's not. But what you would do, what I would do personally, because 6,400, a lot of numbers will go into 6,400. 2 will go into it. 5 will go into it. 10 will go into it. A lot of numbers will go into 6,400. So I would try some numbers. I would try 3,200, the 32,003, and see what numbers would go into that. And if you play with this for a minute, what you'll find is there's nothing that will go into both of these. And so that's your answer. That's all you have to do. There's no, you should always try to simplify it, but there's not really a lot of simplification to do. So number 3, this answer, all you do is plug in 5 here and here and here and here to get that answer. So last question, question number 5 says, find h of g of x. Okay? which is the same as h of g of x. So we take the function h, and we're going to plug in g, which is square root of 4x minus 3. Well, what is the function h? The function h, if we go back up here, is 1 over 3x squared plus 5. So 1 over 3x squared plus 5. And basically what we're doing here, folks, is we take the function g and we plug it in everywhere we have x. Well, this is just going to give me 1 over 3 times 4x minus 3 plus 5. Okay? And 3 times 4x is 12x, and 3 times 3 is 9. And so, of course, negative 9 plus 5 is going to give me negative 4. So I end up with 1 over 12x minus 4. 12x minus 4. And if you wanted to simplify this any, you could factor out a 4, and you'd end up with 1 over 4 times 3x minus 1. You could end up with that. Okay? So this is what we call function arithmetic. Composite functions, multiplying, adding. In this case, all we did was multiply and find composites, but you can also add and subtract with functions, and I have another video on that as well. And you can also add and subtract functions graphically, and I have another video on that as well. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know.